Welcome to today's 5-minute Bible study in the book of 1 Corinthians. The last couple of days we've looked at 1 Corinthians chapter 6. And before we move on to chapter 7, I have just a few more comments to make about one section of chapter 6 that is very, very interesting, I think. It's 1 Corinthians 6, verses 2 through 4. Now remember, in this passage, Paul has been encouraging the Corinthian believers not to sue one another in pagan law courts. Don't take each other to court. He said you should be able to settle your own disputes internally. Now, one of the reasons he gives for they've been able or should be able to settle their own disputes is because in God's purpose for them, they will stand in rulership over the world in some sense. Now, listen to what he says in verses 2 through 4 of chapter 6. Do you not know that the Lord's people will judge the world? And if you are to judge the world, are you not competent to judge trivial cases? Do you not know that we will judge angels? How much more the things of this life? In other words, you should be able to settle these small matters if you're going to have such an eternal destiny. But what is that destiny? What is that purpose he's talking about? When will the people of the church judge the world? I think it goes back to the creation story. Now you remember that when God created the world, he placed Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. And they were to be stewards of the world creation. That is, they were to extend Eden all over the world. As they were fruitful and multiplied, they would take Eden, that perfect paradise of God, and as regents over the world, or stewards of the world, they were co-rulers with God. That is, they were under-rulers for him. They were to extend Eden all over the world. But then sin entered the picture and marred all of that. But the whole story of redemption is God restoring what was lost in sin, or by sin. And when you get to the very last part of the Bible, you'll see the New Jerusalem coming down and the new heavens and the new earth. And you'll see that Eden is restored. And I believe that the future of the church is to be those stewards over the new heavens and the new earth, as shown us at the end of Revelation 21. And so that, I believe, is what Paul is referring to when he says we will judge the world. When salvation is complete, once again, humanity will be God's stewards over God's creation in the new heavens and the new earth. So if you're going to serve that role, why can you not judge trivial cases today? But then he also says, one day you'll judge angels. Now that's a little more difficult for us. What in the world does he mean that we will judge angels? How would that be, and when would that be? Well, to be honest with you, we're not really sure. This is the only time in the Bible I can think of that is mentioned. So I don't know that we can be terribly precise, but I also think it also has to do with the end times. Now you remember that there are fallen angels in this world who often help to entice men to sin. We know, of course, in the sort of the original fall, Satan comes, the original fallen one, to lure Adam and Eve away from God's plan for them. He tempts them into sin. Remember that. But also all through the scripture, you see other fallen angels who create problems. And so I believe the day will come when redeemed humanity will be a part of that judgment on those angels who have led humanity astray. And so, Paul tells us if that day will come when we will stand as rulers over the world under the Lord as his regents, and perhaps stand in some judgment over those angels who helped to lead us astray, those who fell. If we're going to do that in God's eternal purposes, can't we at least handle these trivial cases today? Probably so. So Paul says, take care of your internal disputes yourself, because one day you will stand in a much greater role in the purposes of God. Hope you'll join us tomorrow as we continue our 5-minute Bible study in the book of 1 Corinthians. We'll begin looking at chapter 7 in our next session.